Hey guys, I'm like a minute early, so better early than late because I'm usually always late. So I apologize, I'm not all put together. I'm at home today, but I didn't get a chance to do my video last week because we were so busy, and our customers are our first priority. As much as we love doing these videos, we got to make sure that we take care of you guys and your needs. So I apologize that you missed me last week. So I'm just going to hang out here for a moment. Yeah, see if anyone jumps on at all. I know it's weird. Tuesday, you guys aren't used to it. Next week, we should be back to schedule because I think it's not till like the 27th or something like that. So I'll come back on next week on Thursday and talk about something else. I'm not sure quite what, but probably something about the new year because that's going to be an exciting one. So yeah, so I'm here to talk about Yule and solstice and how you can add that into your current Christmas celebrations. First, I just want to talk about like Yule and solstice pretty much go hand in hand. Yule and solstice are just like our Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, in our more modern world, because of the Christianity and such. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and you're going to notice that a lot of the stuff that I'm saying here, you're going to be like, well, we do that for Christmas. And yeah, it is, because over time with when Christianity came in, they liked these traditions, but they didn't like, I guess I shouldn't say they didn't like, but Christianity was very afraid of some of these more, pagan-like rituals and things like that, so they kind of took them on as their own and changed it to work around their gods. But it's all good and it all encompassing no matter who your god is. You're going to learn very quickly that Yule and solstice can actually take on God and Jesus, as well as the many other gods, and I'll talk about that too. So Yule and solstice is something that you can add to the celebrations that you already do and create, and you're going to realize that you probably already kind of do it. There might be some family traditions that maybe your grandmother or great grandmother used to do, and you'll see why, especially since a lot of us are from Europe and Germany and like those countries over there. A lot of us are from over there, so a lot of our great grandmothers and stuff like that have brought over, and grandfathers, of course, have brought over a lot of these traditions because that's kind of where it originated from. But when we came over here, our religion was based off of Christianity, Catholics and things like that, so they kind of made it their own. But I'm not going to go into that kind of stuff because I'm not really here to talk about religion and all that. I'm here to talk about celebrations and it being Yule and solstice coming up. They're two really important ones that I really hope we can share with our children so they can continue to share, because it's really part of our ancestry. It's ingrained in our blood, and we really should continue to celebrate that for many reasons. I'm going to start with Yule, excuse me, because Yule is kind of one of the most universal. Yule is equivalent to Christmas Eve, okay? But it runs differently. It runs more like a Hanukkah. So it's kind of neat. So depending on your belief system, if you're more of the pagan Wicca based, you will probably celebrate Yule from December 20th to December 24th. But if you are more of the Nordic, German, English descent, you may be celebrating Yule from December 20th to January 1st. And I'll explain why here as we go. I'll just tell you why really quick. So the main reason why a lot of the German type and the Nordics and the Viking type ancestry will celebrate it for the December 21st or December 20th to January 1st is because of the Yule log that burns for 12 days, and I'll talk about that later. All right, so going quickly into it, Yule celebrations are full of, they do big bonfires. That's when they start decorating their homes, the outside of their houses, especially with holly and mistletoe. They start decorating or bringing in the evergreen trees. Actually, very traditional to not bring in the real trees. They would decorate the tree that was outside of their home. They did not believe in cutting down the trees and bringing them in. That was something that was done by Christianity. So they would have huge feasts and give gifts. And of course that they did do some ritual sacrifices, but don't be afraid. They weren't like killing virgins and going all crazy. So don't worry about that. It was more like they would have more of a ritual sacrifice on the pig that they were going to feast on, or the lamb that they were going to feast on. And when I say ritual sacrifice, I mean that they would have like a blessing for the animal. So they wouldn't necessarily just like we do slaughterhouses and go to the grocery store. They didn't do that back then. Back then, they would raise their animals specifically for Yule, and they would love it and cherish it and feed it and treat it with kindness. And then when the day came, they would have a blessing for it. They would have a big ritual and a celebration of life for the animal that they were going to feast on that night. So they really appreciated the animals before they did them. So that's what the ritualistic sacrifice actually means. So it's not scary like you think, or like they tried to tell people it is. It's not. It's actually all about love and happiness and life, right? It's all about the circle of life and food. We need food. They need food, and it just keeps us all going. Sorry, I've got my notes today at least, so I didn't forget my notes. So some traditions of Yule, the Santa, like what our Santa Claus is for Yule, it is the Viking, more often than not, the Viking god Odin. So Odin was also seen as Kris Kringle, is another way that the Germans would have called him. But he was known to come wander the streets with his long white beard and his big white coat. And he would wander the streets, and kids would put their shoes out in front of their homes and fill it with sugar and hay so that Odin's 8-legged horse would have food. So that was kind of what they did. And Odin would leave gifts of food at their doorstep, so apples and oranges especially. And I'll talk about why apples and oranges were a big thing when I get to the solstice. So yeah, the eve of, which is Yule. So Yule is on the 20th and solstice is on the 21st, right? So Christmas and Christmas Eve. So they would do that on the night of Yule. The Yule log was meant to be a whole entire tree that was meant to burn for 12 days. So that goes back to why I said some people celebrate for those 12 days. And each day they would burn and burn and burn. This was thought to encourage the sun to move so that we can get longer days, because the harvesting, right? Your harvesting season was really at its lowest point at this time because it's cold, there's no sun, things like that. Yule was to be celebrated with the winter solstice, right? So they go hand in hand. Winter solstice really is a huge part of Yule. It encompasses Yule. And Yule was kind of that pre-celebration to the winter solstice, just like we have that pre-celebration of Christmas Eve. Yeah, so it kind of like later on, I was already talked about that part. It was adapted by Christianity, and the dates were kind of moved to their religious beliefs. For Yule, if you want to celebrate Yule, which is the pre-celebration to the solstice, again, has a lot to do with the harvest, and things like that. That part of it does. Some things you can do at home, are serving certain foods. So they really like to serve cookies, spiced cider, fruits and nuts. Pork dishes were really popular back then because pigs were a lot easier to get than turkeys, but turkey was sometimes offered as well. Eggnog. Some herbs you can add into the day. So if you want to burn some with your sage or you want to use some as oils, cedar, frankincense, sage, oak, bayberry. So these are some oils that you can use during and with your celebration. A lot of people for Yule and solstice will do big drummings and they'll do singings and they'll do meditations to honor those traditions and honor that time of year. So that's something you can do too. Sage is a big one. It's a big one for every day when you are kind of in this world and whatnot. So using sage in your home and in your food is a big one. So incense, big ones, if you want to burn some incense that day on the 20th, pine, cedar, bayberry, and cinnamon are the ones that you want to look for. If you want to add some colors, so if you're decorating your tree, but you want to celebrate Yule as well as Christmas, add some reds, greens, which you probably already have because those are Christmassy colors, gold and silver again, but add some yellows and oranges. Those are big because that's going to be representing the sun, which is what we're going to talk about next in the solstice. So the whole point of Yule is to prepare yourself for the longest day of the year in celebration. Some stones you can add if you're doing meditations or drummings or anything that you're doing to celebrate in your own way. You can add ruby, bloodstone, garnet, emeralds, or diamonds. And all the rituals that you're going to want to do. So when I say rituals, I mean meditations, I mean singing bowls, like sound bowls, pre-dinner stuff. If you want to set this type of stuff up on your table, right when you go, before you serve dinner on Yule, you want to sit and pray or meditate or manifest peace, love, harmony, and happiness. Yule is all about family and gathering and being together. Okay. It's all about encompassing all of that. Yeah, I totally froze because my husband's watching me in the other room and I can hear myself. All right. Anyways, I'm going to continue on. I don't want to keep you here all day. It's the holidays. We got tons to do. So I'm going to move on to the winter solstice and how it encompasses, Yule, I guess a little bit, where Yule's more of that preemptive solstice. So solstice is quite basically, everyone celebrates or everyone acknowledges solstice. It's the first day of winter. It is the shortest day of the year. So here in Red Deer, Alberta, the sun will set on December 21st at 4:28 p.m. Okay, so that's when you can begin your celebrations if you like, but traditionally they start on Yule and they just keep going. They just go. It's often, again, another night of celebrations, just like we do with Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We have feasts and fire, dancing and singing. Caroling actually came about from solstice. The tradition to singing is because it was so dark that a lot of the homes, while they're burning their Yule logs, would sing so people would know that there are other people around. And if you went into the woods to get wood or berries or anything like that, it was very traditional to keep singing, to keep the wildlife away, and if you got lost, somebody could find you by listening for your song. And song is very powerful. The voice, that vibration is super powerful for encompassing that type of energy. Some, depending on what your belief systems are, like to, again, do drummings that day. Very, very traditional in the shamanic aspect of the drumming on the solstice. And that is said to, the noise is said to bring the sun back. So the more joy and the more excitement you do on that day, the faster the sun will rise and the longer the days will get. And that's how we bring the sun back, is how they see it. And meditations. Nowadays, it's really easy doing meditations to honor and bless the sun and the moon and the gods. The solstice is really about celebrating the rebirth of gods and goddesses. So it's all about, I'll talk about the seasons here real quick. So I'm going to just off to this one way. So, there in the pagan aspect, a little bit of the Wicca, they believe that goddess is the mother and God is the sun. Okay, so goddess represents the moon and God represents the sun and the seasons. So in the spring, God is born. And then he flourishes, everything flourishes, and then the summer, and then in the fall, he becomes old and weak, and then the winter, he dies. And the longest day of the year is the saddest day because he has passed away. So on winter solstice, December 21st, is like a funeral for them. So they want to celebrate life, and they want to bring the sun back so goddess can rebirth the god. But there's lots of gods in it. So it's all kind of the same story, but it depends, because even the Greek gods, like this is the time that we celebrate Odin and Thor, the Green Man, the fairies, all of it. It's all being celebrated here because it's all seen as the death. And then spring's going to be your rebirth. So that's why the sun is down, because it's sad, right? It's dead. I guess that's just really harsh. And the moon is obviously sad. So that's another reason why we do the celebration. It's the same way when we do our funerals. You know, we're sad and we cry and we're upset, but at the end of the day, we all get together for some food and we talk about the happy memories and we laugh and we sing and we celebrate the life that they had. And that's the idea behind the solstice celebrations. Solstice, so solstice is meant to be celebrated with rebirth and joy, because we know that the rebirth is coming. It's also been celebrated for the harvest. So a lot of times there's a lot of rituals based on theories that, or oh my gosh, I can't even, farmers and such will celebrate it for their harvesting, because they need the sun and the land to unfreeze so that they can continue their harvest. So they will celebrate then, tradition saying that if they celebrate hard enough and loud enough and sing enough and give enough, that their harvests will be aplenty come spring. Apples and oranges were gifted to represent the sun. So that was, goes back to the Yule, why, Odin would go around and leave apples and oranges and such on the doorstep, because those would represent the sun coming back, and represent the celebration of the sun because it's gone. So again, I talked about the burning of the 12 days for the Yule. So because of solstice, we really want to focus on burning oak or pine. And this day here, you would do a little bit more of a celebration, because it's like that Christmas day, right? It's extra special. But yes, so if you're not burning oak and pine for your Yule, this is a day specifically for sure that you want to burn that oak or pine, just for tradition's sake. Or you can get a small log and have 3 candles in it, and for 12 days you burn those candles. For people that can't burn, that's more of a more modern indoorsy type way of celebrating. They also would line candles and pillars along the walls, and they would burn those as well for 12 days. Yeah, so that's pretty much it in a wrap. So there's so much you can find online. I don't have all day to be here with you. I wish I did. And I'm sure you guys don't want to sit here for 3 hours and listen to me ramble on about this. So I wanted to give you guys the basics of why to celebrate and how to celebrate. So if you have any more questions, again, you guys can comment here on the video, or you can send us a message or come down to the shop. We're open until the 23rd. At the Soul Center, 12 to 6, and then on the 23rd, 12 to 5, just regular hours this week. And then for Christmas, we are going to have special hours right afterwards. So we are closed December 26th. Of course, the 24th and 25th, we are not open. So we are closing the 26th as well. So the 27th to the 30th, I think it is, we are only open 12 to 5. So come on down and do any New Year shopping to get ready for the new year, because there's a full moon right away. So we'll talk about that next week though, because this one's all about our celebrations and whatnot. So remember, get together with your family. This is a really important time to celebrate together, and learn all about our heritage and our ancestors. So again, if you aren't seeing the little live, my finger won't show, but right there. If you're not seeing the little live right there in the corner, that means you're watching the replay, and that is why I did not answer you or any of your questions today, okay? So I apologize, but we will try and get back to you with some answers as soon as we can. All right, thanks for listening, and happy Yule, happy solstice, and Merry Christmas. Bye.